Well, hello everyone. My name is Bill Pollock. I am on the school board for Corona Norco Unified School District. I'm one of your representatives. I am also in the medical field. I am a physician assistant. I've been practicing medicine in Corona here for over 20 years. And I'm so excited that Mrs. Imfeld invited me today to share with you some of my thoughts about COVID-19. You guys have submitted some incredible questions, and so I hope I could answer them without confusing you a little bit more. I just have to tell you before I begin, I just love all of your schools and all of your teachers. I have a bit of a connection with each of your schools, so I'm going to share that before I get going. First of all, Vicentia, the Vikings. I am a Viking. I went to Vicentia, started in kindergarten and went all the way through 6th grade. And so that's that school, you guys hold such a special place in my heart. Todd Academy, my connection with Todd, I actually knew Dr. Todd, who the school is named after. We went to the same church. Of course, I was a little kid, but I always looked up to her, and she really got me interested in medicine. And then lastly, Stallings. Oh, I just love Stallings. Both of my boys went to Stallings. In fact, they had a couple of your teachers, Mrs. Meadows and Mr. Mack. And so I always love going back to Stallings and visiting with the wonderful teachers there. So anyway, again, I am so excited to be here today to talk about COVID-19. It is an interesting disease, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions about it. And there's a lot of things that are you hear about maybe on the news or from grown-ups or from your teachers. There's a lot of information, and sometimes it's confusing and it's scary, and we understand that. But hopefully, after talking with you today, I can maybe alleviate some of the anxiety and the fears that you have. So you guys, again, have submitted some wonderful questions. I've tried to do a format where I could answer them all, and Mrs. Imfeld has helped me tremendously by getting some pictures and some fixing up my slides for me after I tried to do it, and she helped quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm don't use Zoom that much, but what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to talk you through some slides, answer the questions, and again, hopefully I answer more questions than I create. Okay, so again, I'm just so excited to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you. I know it's not been the kind of end of the school year that you've all wanted, and I'm sorry for that. But I just want to thank you for continuing to work hard in the classroom. Your classroom might be at home now. And I also want to thank your wonderful teachers, because they've done so much to work with you in a way that no one really expected was going to happen. All of a sudden, one day, boom, you're saying goodbye to your teachers, and they didn't have a chance to give you hugs and spend the rest of the year with you. So anyway, let's see if I can do this. All right, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to try and move myself from the corner so you don't have to look at me. Okay, here's another picture of me. And again, the name of the talk is Understanding COVID-19. So some of the first questions, Mrs. Sweeten and Mrs. Scholl from the Vicentia Vikings. What is the coronavirus and COVID-19? What can we do to not get COVID-19? Now, what I did was I grouped some of the questions because some of them were similar, so I grouped them together. And so your question might be grouped with some others. Okay, so what is coronavirus? Now, you'll hear some different names. You'll hear coronavirus. You'll hear COVID-19. Well, they're the same thing. So coronaviruses are a family of viruses that attack our body. Okay, the main area that they attack is, um, I'm going to try and limit this so that you can see the screen a little bit better. But um, they mainly attack the lungs and other respiratory parts of the respiratory system. So lungs, throat, nose, sinuses, those are the main areas that we see problems with. Now, when we talk about viruses, this is just one of the germs that attacks the bodies. There's bacteria. So if you went to the doctors and they said you had an ear infection, or they said you had tonsillitis, or you had strep throat, that's a bacteria, all right? And with bacterias, we can give you medicine to fight that, called an antibiotic. So you may have had an antibiotic to fight one of those infections. Then there's another type of bacteria, a fungus, and that's a little bit different as well. So the most common one that I could think of to tell you guys is ringworm. If you get a little spot on your arm, round circle, it's ringworm, and we give you a different medicine. Well, the last group of germs, there's more, but the last one I really want to talk about are viruses. So they work a little bit different. They're generally spread by coughing, sneezing, droplets. Now, so if you got a cold, or if you got the flu, that's the virus. And then COVID-19 is a virus. So the coronavirus is a family of viruses. Okay. So there's many coronaviruses. There's a lot out there. The one that we're dealing with, we call COVID-19, and I'll get to why we call it that pretty soon. Now, why do we call it coronavirus? No, it didn't start in Corona, California. It didn't start down the street. We call coronavirus that because when you look at it under the microscope, it looks like the virus is wearing a crown. It has pointy, sharp prongs. And so if you see the picture here, if we were to cut it in half, it almost looks like a crown. And corona in Latin is crown. So that's how it gets its name. It's not from our city. Now, there have been many coronaviruses around for years, and most of the time it causes mild illness. In fact, about a quarter of the people who have a common cold, they have a coronavirus. So again, a lot of times coronaviruses are not problems. Our body can defend it properly. We have dealt with it somewhat before, so our body builds up immunity or antibodies to fight that virus. So having said that, I'm going to just explain quickly about a virus. So think of a virus like a spy. What makes a good spy? Okay, you guys have seen movies out there. A good spy, they have great costumes or disguises that they could stay away from their opponent or the good guy, for example. So I'm going to say now this is a bad spy. The virus is a bad spy. The good spy that we're going to talk about is your body's immune system. So your immune system, it protects the body from infection. It'll protect it from bacterial infections, like I talked about before, and from viruses. Now, when you have a really good spy who has a really good disguise, the immune system can't recognize that virus right away. So the virus is able to infiltrate the body. It could attack the cells in the body, and then it could cause illness. We see that with high fever, cough, congestion, and then again, the lungs start having problems, the sinuses start having problems. So again, it's those disguises that make the spy or the virus hard to detect. So one of those disguises is a mutation. So when the virus mutates and changes, it kind of changes the disguise. So once our immune system thinks they know who they're fighting or who that spy is, boom, they put on a different disguise and they change a little bit, and our immune system has difficulty fighting them. So that's, I don't know, hopefully again, I didn't confuse you, but that's an analogy I like about the viruses and why this virus is a little bit more difficult because we've never experienced it before. And that's why we call it a novel coronavirus, because our bodies just, our immune systems don't know anything about it. Well, how do we get COVID-19? So there are two main ways respiratory viruses spread. One is large droplets from the nose or mouth. And when you cough or sneeze, they land on surfaces that people touch, maybe doorknobs, maybe shopping carts. And then when you touch that and then touch your face or rub your eyes or rub your nose, then you could spread that virus. That's why everybody is trying to say, don't touch your face. Try not to touch your face or your nose or anything like that. Then the second type of particle, they're smaller particles, and those float in the air, and they could travel from a person when they sneeze or cough, and they could float in the air for some distances. This is why we tell people to, one, wear masks, and also to social distance, to stay a good distance away from people, so that maybe those particles can't spread and infect other people as easily. Going back to the large droplets, that's why we're having people wash their hands as much as they can, wash for at least 20 seconds, sing happy birthday twice, and that will get you through the 20 seconds. Those are why those guidelines are recommended. Okay, Mrs. Cohen's class at Stallings, you have a couple of questions. What does COVID-19 stand for? What can we do to not get the coronavirus? Okay, so what does COVID-19 stand for? This is a little bit wordy, so I apologize. But if you break down the word COVID-19, the CO stands for corona, the VI stands for virus. So coronavirus, and then the D stands for disease. So coronavirus disease, we shorten that to say COVID. And then the year that it was first discovered, 2019, that's where it gets the 19, so COVID-19. The World Health Organization, or it's also called WHO, they named that virus COVID-19. They monitor our diseases throughout the world. And if you look at the picture here, you could see kind of the crown type of shape that it is. So what can you do not to get COVID-19? Well, we're trying to help people not to get COVID-19, one, by staying home from school. So unfortunately, you have to stay home from school. Maybe your parents have to stay home from work. We're trying to keep people from gathering together where they might spread the disease. You've heard the term social distancing. That's part of this as well. So we're trying to stop how this virus is transmitted. We're not exactly sure how it's passed from one person to the other, but it is through the droplets. Again, we don't know how long it might last on surfaces. You're hearing different information that we thought that was the way it was transmitted initially, and then that's changed a little bit, and maybe it doesn't stay on surfaces as long as we thought. But you still have to take those guidelines seriously. Wash your hands as much as you can. Don't touch your face. Try and stay 6 feet away from each other, and wear face masks. Now, the county, one of the groups that we get our guidelines from, they have recently said, okay, you don't necessarily have to they're not requiring face masks in public, but they're strongly recommending it. So if you're out in the open, maybe going for a walk or riding your bike, you don't necessarily have to wear one, but it's strongly recommended. But if you happen to go somewhere where people are, let's say you have to go to the doctor's for a doctor's appointment, you should wear a mask while you're there. Or if your parents have to go to the grocery store, it's important to wear it while they're there. And then again, one of the most important things is wash your hands all the time. And again, at least 20 seconds. If you can do it longer, great. But singing happy birthday twice, include the cha-cha-chas, and that will make 20 seconds for washing the hands. Okay, Mrs. Morano, also at Stallings, are doctors and scientists getting close to a cure or vaccine for COVID-19? Can animals get COVID-19? Was COVID-19 man-made or caused by unhealthy conditions or food? Boy, those are some great questions. And I'll tell you, we are working hard on getting all the answers here in the medical field. Okay, I'm gonna move myself so you could see some of this. Okay, are doctors and scientists getting close? Well, again, this is different from other pandemics we've had. So right now we're in a pandemic. That's why we're having to stay home and take all of these precautions. Now, prior pandemics, the last main one you may have heard of was in 1918, the Spanish flu. The prior pandemics that we've seen have all been from influenza. Okay, this one is different. This is a coronavirus. So influenza is a different type of virus than the coronavirus. So we don't have as much information on how to battle it. Maybe you guys or your parents will get flu shots. That flu shot is for influenza. We don't have right now a vaccine for coronavirus, so that's what's making it very difficult to get rid of this virus. Yes, the scientists and the doctors are working very, very hard to make a virus or to make a vaccine for this, but it takes a while to make a vaccine. You have to do studies to make sure it works. You have to do studies to make sure it's safe for people, and that takes time. Right now, our government is trying to accelerate this process, but again, it's still going to take time because we want to make sure it's a safe vaccine. The last thing we want is a vaccine that might harm people more than what the vaccine is given for. So scientists are working very, very hard to get something done. Okay, I'm gonna move my face again so we can answer the next question. Can animals get infected with COVID-19? Again, very, very good question. I love these pictures of these pets, and a lot of us have pets. So we have noticed a small number of pets, including cats and dogs, that have been infected with COVID-19, mainly after a close contact with people who've had it. You may have heard reports or seen on the news, there was a tiger in New York that was in a zoo that also tested positive for COVID-19. So at this time, we're not exactly sure why some animals will get it and if certain animals will get it and others will not. We don't have any proof right now that animals can spread the virus. Your pets can spread COVID-19 to humans. What we've looked at right now, and the research is showing the risk is very, very low. But again, I'm talking more now about household pets. Okay, now, was it man-made? Very, very good question. Right now, it does not appear that way. Again, scientists have been looking, trying to figure out when it started and how it started. It does not look like it was man-made, meaning it was made in a lab and an experiment gone wrong, or maybe experiments to try and develop a weapon, or whatever. We do not, it does not look like now that it was man-made. It did start, we were able to find out through our scientists that it looked like it started in a city in China called Wuhan. It most likely was at a seafood market around December of 2019. It looks like it may have jumped from an animal species to a human, and then started to spread from human to human. So some of the suggestions are it came from a bat. And that could have been the animal that first started it. Again, I'm not talking about a cat or a dog, but we're talking about some smaller animals that it possibly could have started with. But it does look like it was at Wuhan, China, in a seafood market, but not in a lab. Okay, Mrs. Riley, Todd Academy. What made the virus so deadly, and will people get their jobs back? Again, some great questions. I love these. Some of them, again, are not medically, maybe I don't have the answers from a medical standpoint, but I could give you kind of my personal take on what I've seen from how we're attacking it in medicine. So what made the virus so deadly? So again, the coronavirus mutated in some ways, and our immune systems couldn't fight it. We haven't developed the proper fighting technique, and that has made it much more serious to humans. As I mentioned before, the pandemics that we've seen and we've studied to try and learn from, those were influenzas, and this is a coronavirus. So again, trying to study it has been very difficult. Now, some people get a little bit more sick from this. A lot of people, they don't seem to have too many symptoms, but some people get very sick from it. And so sometimes you'll see in front of COVID-19, you'll see SARS. SARS stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. That means this person has had significantly worsening shortness of breath maybe, or their lungs just are not able to fight the disease, so maybe they get some pneumonia. Sometimes they have to go into the hospital and get ventilated, which is a way to fight the disease a little bit. They'll be put on a ventilator. So again, because of the way that the virus is mutated, we don't have all the answers on how to fight it. And again, a lot of people don't have a lot of severe complications for it, but there are some people who really do, and we have to protect them. Will people get their jobs back? Great question. Unfortunately, because of this virus and the steps that our state and our country have had to implement, a lot of people have not been able to work during this time. You've maybe heard the term essential worker. That's somebody who needs to work during this time. Maybe somebody in the medical field, or maybe somebody who works at a grocery store. In my opinion, everybody is essential. Everybody's job is important. But some businesses have been closed to try and, again, stop the spread of this virus. It's very important for people to be able to work, and we need to get people back to work because we need people to be able to provide for their families. So my hope is that all people will be able to go back to work and get their jobs back. However, because of the impact that COVID-19 has had in our society, there's some businesses that may close down completely and not reopen. It's a shame, but there might be some people that can't be hired back because of this virus. Maybe businesses will close, stores will close. And so hopefully a lot of people will get their jobs back, but there are going to be people who unfortunately won't have a job waiting for them when things open up. Okay. How's everyone doing? I hope you guys are doing okay. Take a deep breath, maybe get up and do some jumping jacks. I hope I'm not putting you to sleep. Mrs. Payne, here's a picture of Mrs. Payne and Mr. Schneider and Mr. Mack over at Stallings. Pajama day, it looks like. The awesome teachers over there. Okay, so your class questions. How does a virus attack the body? Why were people buying so much toilet paper? That's a good question too. Both of those are very good questions. Okay, so how does the virus attack the body? So The viruses will make normal human cells not being able to function. So our body is full of cells. I know in science you've probably already learned that. But what happens when the virus goes in and it attacks the cells, causes them not to work right. Um, when they're inside the body and they start attacking cells, they replicate, they multiply very, very quickly until there's so many of the viral cells that the normal cells can't work and do their jobs. So once that happens, especially in the respiratory tract, then our body's not being able to do what it needs to do. So for example, the respiratory tract, it needs, what that does is it when you breathe in the oxygen. That oxygen in the lungs is transferred to the blood, and then the blood takes the oxygen to all the working cells in the body, the brain, the heart, the muscles, all that. And when you can't, when those things can't happen, then that's when we get sick. And so, again, the respiratory tract is the main body system that's affected. The nose, the sinuses, the throat, the lungs. We're seeing other areas of the body that the coronavirus attacks. The stomach, there might be rashes involved. There's something called COVID toes, where the toes look like they're changing. There's something called COVID eyes. Somebody who's infected, they start to get really red, irritated eyes. So it does attack other parts of the body, but again, the respiratory tract is the most important that we're dealing with. Why are people buying so much toilet paper? Oh, that's such a great question. I wish I had a medical answer, and I'm not exactly sure. When one of my sons was 1 year old, a friend bought him a book for his birthday, and it's called Everybody Poops. And I think my theory why people are buying so much toilet paper, there's three things that everybody does. Everybody eats, everybody sleeps, and everybody poops. Okay, so we have a lot of different foods that we can go buy to eat. Sleeping is not a problem. You don't really have to buy anything, but everybody does need toilet paper. And I think people wanted to stock up because they were afraid, okay, well, maybe I won't be able to get it later on. And so people just started buying it. Then the other thing I think happened is people felt they maybe didn't think they needed it, and they're thinking, what is everybody doing? But they kind of got in this panic mode because they saw everybody else buying the toilet paper, and they thought, maybe I need to. I don't know. I think they got a little bit nervous. I know I did. I started thinking, I wonder if we have enough toilet paper at home. So when I saw some at the store, I said, I'm going to buy some. We probably didn't need it, but I just kind of had that little anxiety that we better get it. So anyway, I don't know if that's the right question. I don't have a medical response to that, although that was maybe a psychological response. But anyway, maybe that's the answer. All right, Mrs. Runquist, third grade, Stallings, will all students be tested for COVID before we go back to school? And will we go back in August? Why didn't people that lived long ago get COVID-19? And will all students have to wear a face mask when school begins again? Very, very good questions. Boy, you guys are really thinking this through. I wish I had full answers for you. I'm going to take my face off here so we can look at these. Okay, will students be tested for COVID-19 before we go back to school? Great, great question. As of now, students and teachers will not be required to be tested for COVID-19. There's a lot of questions about the testing. I have a lot of my patients tested. I've had some positive, some negative. The one thing about the test that you have to remember is the test will tell us what's happening right there. So let's say you're starting school on August 11th. Let's say we want everybody to be tested before school starts. We test everybody on August 1st, and you're negative. Well, you could be tested on August 1st and not have COVID-19, but let's say you go to the store to get some school supplies on August 10th and come in contact with somebody who has COVID-19. then you could have COVID-19. That test on August 1st isn't accurate. So it's good, but it's one of those things that you might have to be tested every month if we did testing. So we are not testing students right now. We're not testing teachers right now. Will that change? Quite possibly. If maybe a better test comes along, there are some other tests that are being developed, but right now the answer to that is no. Will we come back to school in August? School is going to start August 11th. Okay, so that's definitely when it's going to start. But we don't know how it's going to be. We're not sure if you're going to be back at Stallings, back at Vicentia, back at Todd. We don't know if you're going to be physically there or if it's going to be online like it is now. Or it might be a combination of the two. We are working very, very hard at developing a plan. We actually have multiple plans thought out. We just need to wait for the guidelines to come about to tell us how we can have you, back learning. Okay. Now, just the other day, here's a stack of papers that I just got. I get a stack probably twice as big as this. And one of the people that we listen to, the CDC, they just sent out information on recommendations for going back to school. And maybe your teachers will look at them, and maybe your parents will look at them. And some of them are very good ideas. Some of them, I don't know if they're doable for our schools. We're just going to have to do the best we can to see what we can. Again, school will start on August 11th. I just can't tell you how, okay? But hopefully in the next week or two, we'll have more information, specific information on that. Again, people are working very hard, developing multiple options, and we just have to wait for the timing to see what's going to be allowed and see how it can work. Okay. Why did people that lived long ago get COVID-19? Well, remember, this is a novel coronavirus. This is one that's going on right now. There were other coronaviruses in the past, but not the COVID-19. So the reason they didn't get it is it really wasn't there. They were exposed to other coronaviruses, but not to this specific one. So they did get some illnesses. It just wasn't COVID-19. Okay, well, all students have to wear face masks when school begins. That's a very, very good question. Now, I am going to change here. I'm going to go off of my sharing for just a second because I want to show you a few things. Okay, hopefully you could see me now. So I have a few masks here. I have a couple of medical masks. So here's this mask. You may have seen this. This is an N95 mask, and this is primarily for medical personnel and first responders. You really shouldn't be wearing this. It gives you a little bit added protection, but sometimes they're hard to get. But this is a N95 mask. Then here's another medical mask that you may have seen. I wear this one at work all the time because it gives you a little bit better protection. And then we have some fun ones. Some of your brothers or sisters might have one like this. What school is this for? Centennial. Then we have one for Santiago. We have one for my college, UCLA. And then we have some fun ones here. We have, I don't know if you could see this, but this is my Star Wars one. These are cloth masks, and these are ones that you could be wearing. Here's a Marvel with Hulk and Spider-Man and some fun ones. I like the Angels. I know Miss Forster over at Stallings, she's a big Angel fan. She might like one like this. Mickey Mouse. So I have a collection of them because I wear them quite a bit at work. Then there's some, here's one that's appropriate for now because this Memorial Day coming up. This is one that has flags. Now this one has a pocket in there, and it has a filter, so it's hard to see, but you could put the filter in these, and it gives you a little bit extra protection when you wear it. So those are some masks, and I know you guys all probably have them, or your parents have them. I'm going to go back to sharing the screen so we could talk about the question. Right now, we are not sure about having to wear masks. We are still in that discussion. We have to look at all the information when time comes. At this point, if you were to ask me on a personal basis, I would say yes, we're gonna have to have masks because, again, wearing the masks helps prevent the spread of those respiratory particles that we talked about. So uh, actually, people think, oh, I'm wearing a mask to protect me from getting coronavirus. That's not true. The main reason you wear a mask is to keep you from spreading it to other people. So a lot of times people may have COVID-19 and not know it. They don't have any symptoms. That's why the social distancing and the face masks are so important, because your particles, if there's a way, a barrier that you could stop those particles from being passed on, that's what we want to do. So that's why the masks are important. Now, there are some studies that are just coming out this past week that says, no, the mask can actually help you from getting it as well. So that's encouraging as well. But the main reason is you want to wear it to protect other people. Again, Riverside County just rescinded their order of requiring face masks, but they still strongly recommend them. So we are gathering information from the county, from the California Department of Education, from CDC, everybody that has some pertinent information, and then we as a school district have to make the plan and the decision on whether to wear masks or not. That will come shortly. Okay, Mrs. Tartar's fifth grade class at Todd, the Toucans. Is there medication to help with COVID-19? And will COVID-19 and the quarantine come back? Great questions. So again, this is a virus. The best way to fight this hopefully will be to develop a vaccine. But again, like I mentioned before, that might be a year or two out. So right now, let's look at what we have to fight it. We do not have a specific medicine for COVID-19. Right now, a lot of people, if they get infected, they don't even have to take medicines. But there are some people who are more seriously ill, have more symptoms. And so there is a medicine called remdesivir. Now, this was, remdesivir is a medicine for another illness. But because of some similarities in some of the viral structures that scientists have seen, it's been tried, and it looks very promising for treating COVID-19. It shortens the course of the illness. Something else that's very interesting is blood plasma transfers. So when you get infected with COVID-19, your body develops those antibodies. So what the scientists and the doctors have done is tried to take some of that blood from somebody who's been infected and recovered. Their body fought it off, and then they take the plasma, they get the antibodies, and they give it to somebody who's severely sick. So those are the two main ways that we're looking right now. There's some other medicines that have been tried, some controversial. You may have seen it on the news, but nothing substantial has been proven to fight the COVID-19 virus. That again is something. Developing medicines takes a while because we need it to be safe. So we're using medicines that are already there that are used for other things. And right now, remdesivir is the most promising. Will COVID-19 and the quarantine come back? Well, that's again a question, and I wish I had a crystal ball to answer that. It looks that what scientists are predicting, people who study illnesses and viruses, they are saying that this virus A second wave is what they're saying may come back later in the year. And so again, we're working hard on a vaccine to protect people so that they won't get the virus. Um, but that again takes time. Um, so again, once a vaccine is created and we're able to give it to people, or people get infected and develop their own antibodies, then we'll get rid of the majority of the COVID-19. Will a quarantine come back? Again, if we see a second surge of this illness later on in the year, maybe, then quite possibly we might have to go back into stay-at-home orders. But we just have to see how this virus reacts. We just don't know enough about it to know how it's going to react down the road. There have been some viruses in the last 10 years that we were afraid that were going to be a problem, and then they just kind of petered out on their own. And so hopefully this virus will do the same. It will just go away. Mrs. Meadows, Cameron and Justin say hi. Mrs. Pollock says hi. I forgot to mention my other connection with Stallings. My wife, Mrs. Pollock, used to teach at Stallings. So anyway, they all say hi, Mrs. Meadows. What else can I do besides wash my hands, stay at home, and wear a mask? Boy, I'll tell you, if you're doing all those things, you are an awesome citizen because you are doing everything appropriately to stop the spread of this virus. So if you're doing that right now, that's fantastic. That's more than what we're asking people to do. But some ways that you could stay safe, other things that you can do, make sure that when you cough or sneeze into your elbow. Okay, that's such a great thing to do. Use a tissue when you cough. Cover up. Use a wipe or a spray to disinfect doorknobs and light switches. Anything like that. Always use something like that. Wear gloves if you can. You don't have to all the time. That's fine. But I try not to wear gloves I have to wear gloves at work whenever I see my patients, and so I'm taking every patient. I have to take off gloves and put on new gloves. But sometimes wearing gloves can help. Try not to touch your face. Try not to scratch your eyes, rub your nose, pick your nose. We don't want you picking your nose anyway. But try not to touch your face. And then if you feel sick at all, you make sure your parents know about it and you stay home. You might have that runny nose or that little tickle in your throat. Make sure you tell your parents, because again, there's most likely you do not have the coronavirus, COVID-19, but we want to be sure, and it's just important to stay home if you are sick. So those are some of the things you can do other than what was mentioned. Mrs. Perkins, Vicentia Vikings, first grade. Why do we have to stay indoors? If some people are dying, how do other people stay alive from COVID-19? Oh man, these questions are just great. I'm hoping that when you guys get to be adults, a lot of you want to be doctors or nurses or do something in the healthcare field, be scientists, because you guys are just thinking so greatly. I appreciate these questions. Okay, let me lower this screen. Some people with COVID-19 do not know they have it because they don't feel sick, but you can still give COVID-19 to others. So that's why we have people. That's why we have this stay-at-home order and having people stay at home, because that's what's called asymptomatic. You don't have any symptoms. You don't have the fever. You don't have the sore throat. You don't have the cough or congestion. You don't have the runny nose, but you still may have COVID-19. So that's why we're having people stay at home. That's why we're having people wear masks. Getting outdoors is awesome. We want you to get outdoors. It's important to get outdoors, run, bike, play, but you have to do it safely. You should still stay 6 feet away from people. Again, because remember, if you cough or sneeze, those particles can go up to 6 feet, if not even more. So again, we want you outdoors, um, and staying healthy, but do it in a safe way. So those are all important things. Why do some people get sicker than other? That's just a tremendous question. And honestly, we're not really sure why some people are able to fight the virus off better than others. It's that immune system that we talked about. Some people have, for some reason, better immune systems. One thing that could help your, a few things that could help your immune system that you should be doing, not just for coronavirus, but for anything. You need to make sure you eat a healthy diet. You make sure you drink plenty of water. You make sure that you get plenty of rest. Sleep is so important, so make sure you do that, and also exercise. Playing outside, running, those type of things. Those keep your immune system strong and healthy. So it's important to do that all the time. Now, there's sometimes people who have some medical conditions that it doesn't make them more likely to get COVID-19, but if they do, they could have more serious illness. So that includes people who are over 65 years old. So, maybe some of your grandparents or great grandparents, people who have cancer. Sometimes the medicine that they're taking to help fight the cancer can lower their immune system. People with some medical conditions like diabetes, or if they have heart problems, or if they have lung disease like asthma, those things tend to make the illness more severe if you get it. And then sometimes we just don't know why. There's some young, healthy people who might get COVID-19 and struggle with the illness, and maybe even die. And sometimes we just don't know. So, but again, most of the time it's people who have some underlying or other illness. Mr. Mac. Look at that picture of me and Mr. Mac. So Cameron says hi. Cameron had Mr. Mac for, was it fourth grade, I think? I think fourth grade a couple years ago. And he said to say hi. And there's Mr. Mac and myself, I think, when he was a B master. Anyway, your class, when do you believe this quarantine will end, letting us go back to school and allowing for sporting events? Why don't people take this seriously? I see a lot of people outside and not wearing masks. What great questions. So why don't some people take COVID-19 seriously? Good question. This is my take on it. It might be right, might be wrong. I don't know, but this is my take. There's a lot of information out there, and you guys have access to the internet. You have access to social media. Anybody who wants to put their opinion out there is putting it out there. Then you get some politicians, you get some well-known famous people, maybe an actor or musician. They're all making their comments known. And before you know it, you're just inundated with information. And even here, we get some information from the federal level, the CDC and our president. We get some information from the state, our governor. We get information from our county people, Riverside County. And then we get information from medical people. So there's so much information we get. And then if you watch television and the news, you see the mayor of Los Angeles giving information. We're not in Los Angeles, we're in Riverside. So sometimes that information that he gives, though it might be correct, doesn't pertain to us here in Corona or Temescal Valley. So there's just tons of information, and sometimes we just get overloaded and we say, forget it. I'm not going to deal with it. There's too much going on. I don't want to deal with it. Again, and then people look on the internet, and I think it's okay to look on the internet for information, but make sure it's from a reliable source. I always tell my patients, if you want to look up an illness on the internet, look up a reliable source like the Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, UCLA School of Medicine, anything like that. That's important. the CDC again. So again, it's okay to look at that, but sometimes the information on social media, on Facebook, or I'm not sure some of the things you use, Snapchat or Instagram, might not be the most accurate information. It may be somebody's opinion as opposed to factual information. And I also think there's a lack of trust that we have. And when we have a lack of trust among our leaders and our medical community, maybe, that creates an issue where people might not want to fully take something seriously. Great question, though. Getting back to normal, school and events. Okay, so I'm a huge sports fan. I know Mr. Mack loves the Denver Broncos, but I'm a huge sports fan, and I love all the events at schools, the band, the choir, all the clubs, what you guys have at your schools. I'm hoping that we're going to eventually here get back to normal. What you have to understand, though, I think, is that when I say normal, we're probably going to have a new normal. Okay, so what happened last year or the year before, that might not be the exact same thing that happens this next year or even the next year. So I'm calling it a new normal. But the CDC just released some guidelines, like I mentioned earlier, on getting back to school. And we're looking at those. We're looking at how best we at Corona Norco Unified can get you guys back. A lot of it has to do with the county. The county is starting to relax things as well. If we all listen and do our part, then hopefully we could stop the spread of this virus and we could open up more. My concern is maybe some people will get over anxious or overzealous and do some more things and say, oh, this isn't a big deal. And then we'll have a surge of reinfections, and then we may have to close down again. So again, we'll have some more information on getting back to school and getting back to sports in August. Sports might be a little bit different. There's some guidelines that are coming out for sports and activities and how that's looking. So I'm being really optimistic that in August we could have some sports back. Even some of our professional teams are starting to come back, but we have to be responsible as a school district. We have to be responsible as citizens. The first and foremost is the safety and the health of our students and our teachers and our staff. So that's what we're looking at doing and trying to do. Okay, Mrs. Sherman. Hi, Mrs. Sherman. How are you? My wife says hi too. What is your suggestion for classroom setup when students return to school? How should we social distance our classroom? That is such a great question. Again, these guidelines that just came out by the CDC last week are very interesting. If you haven't seen them, you need to look at them. I honestly don't know how realistic the majority of them are. I need to be politically, I have to be careful how I say that, but I'm looking at it from the medical standpoint. I'm looking at it from a teacher-student standpoint, and I just look at those guidelines, and for our schools, it's going to be very difficult. For now, we're going to make sure that the classrooms are rearranged so that there's the 6 feet distance between desks. We're going to have to make sure there's availability for hand washing, always hand washing. There's different scenarios that we're looking at. But yes, it's going to be difficult to set up that classroom. It's going to be a challenge for you teachers. We're going to have to all work together to try and make it work. And that's why I as a school board member, I please want your input on what you think is realistic, what you think is going to work, and what you think is not going to work. It's very, very important. Okay. Okay. I think the last slide, this is the resources. I know it's been a long time and I apologize for the length of this. I hope you've been stretching and having fun while you're watching this, but here's some resources. These, again, when I talked about going to the internet and looking at good sources of information, these are the sources. We have the CDC. Mayo Clinic is a famous hospital in Minnesota, and there's one in Arizona that just is very, very top of the line. Riverside County, we really have to look at Riverside County for our information here. And then National Geographic Kids, they have some nice scientific facts on coronavirus that you might want to look at. So anyway, I want to wrap this up. I am gonna go off of my screen share. And I just, again, want to say thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Imfeld, and all the teachers and students at Vicentia and Todd. Well, see, look at, I just scratched my head. That's something that we don't want to do. Vicentia, Todd, and John Stallings, thank you for allowing me to be your guest today. It's longer than I'm sure you wanted, but there's a lot of great questions, and I wanted to make sure that I answered each and every question. You guys stay safe, stay healthy, think of others, be kind. It's so important to think of others during this time. You might not know exactly what they're going through or if they have a medical condition, but be kind and be safe and healthy. And I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting all of you guys soon. Teachers, thank you so much for what you're doing. You don't know what it means to me personally and for us as a district and a school board. You guys have been awesome and have been asked to do and go above and beyond, and you have done that. So thank you, Mrs. Imfeld, again, thank you so much. And I hope you guys have a great Memorial Day, or had a great Memorial Day probably when you've seen this. Sixth graders who are promoting on, congratulations. I'm sorry we can't have a big celebration like we normally do. But just know that we love you and we're proud of you. And again, you guys have a great summer and we'll see you in August. All right, bye guys. Thank you.